Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is a screencast-o-matic presentation and recording for the part of the lesson that has looking at the effects of public opinion. Before we get started, please remember that your task for this particular section is to answer the comprehension questions that appear that coincide with this reading. Let's go ahead and get started, and remember that you can replay any part of this presentation that you might need for detail or clarity later. Public opinion polling is prevalent even outside election season, but are politicians and leaders listening to these polls? Or is there some other reason for them? Some believe the increased collection of public opinion is due to growing support of delegate representation. And the theory of delegate representation assumes that the politician is in office to be the voice of the people. If voters want the legislator to vote for legalizing marijuana, for example, the legislator should vote to legalize marijuana. Legislators or candidates who believe in delegate representation may poll the public before an important vote comes up for debate in order to learn what the public desires them to do. Others believe polling has increased because politicians, like the president, operate in permanent campaign mode. To continue contributing money, supporters must remain happy and convinced the politician is listening to them. Even if the elected official does not act in a manner consistent with the polls, he or she can mollify everyone by explaining the reasons behind the vote. Regardless of why the polls are taken, studies have not clearly shown whether the branches of government consistently act on them. Some branches appear to pay closer attention to the public opinion than other branches, but events like time periods and politics may change the way an individual or a branch of government ultimately reacts. Our next section here is about public opinion and elections. Elections are the events upon which public opinion polls have the greatest measured effect. Public opinion polls do more than show how we feel on issues or project who might win an election. The media use public opinion polls to decide which candidates are ahead of the others and therefore of interest to voters and worthy of interview. From the moment President Obama was inaugurated for a second term, speculation began about who would run in 2016 presidential election. And within a year, potential candidates were being ranked and compared by a number of newspapers. The speculation included favorability polls on Hillary Clinton, which measured how positively voters felt about her as a candidate. The media deemed those polls important because they showed Clinton as the frontrunner of the Democrats in the next election. During presidential primary season, we see examples of the bandwagon effect, in which the media pays more attention to candidates who poll well during the fall and the first few primaries. Bill Clinton was nicknamed the comeback kid in 1992 after he placed second in the New Hampshire primary despite accusations of adultery with Jennifer Flowers. The media's attention on Clinton gave him the momentum to make it through the rest of the primary season, ultimately winning the Democratic nomination of the presidency. Polling is also at the heart of horse race coverage, in which, just like an announcer at a horse track or horse race, the media calls out every candidate's move throughout the presidential campaign. Horse race coverage can be neutral, positive, or negative, depending on what polls or facts are covered. During the 2012 presidential election, the Pew Research Center found that both Mitt Romney and President Obama received more negative than positive horse race coverage, especially with Romney's growing more negative as he fell in the polls. Horse race coverage is often criticized for its lack of depth. The stories skip over the candidates' issue positions, voting histories, and other facts that would help voters make an informed decision. Yet horse race coverage is popular because the public is always interested in who will win, and often makes up a third or more of the news stories about an election. Exit polls taken the day of the election are the last election polls conducted by the media. Announced results of these surveys can deter voters from going to the polls if they believe an election has already been decided. Our next section here is about public opinion in government. The relationship between public opinion polls and government action is murkier than between polls and elections. Like the news media and campaign staffers, members of the three branches of government are aware of public opinion. But do politicians use public opinion polls to guide their decisions and actions? The short answer is sometimes. The public is not perfectly informed about politics, so politicians realize public opinion may not always be the right choice. Yet many political studies from the American voter in the 1920s and the American voter revisited in the 2000s have found that voters behave rationally despite having limited information. Individual citizens do not take the time to become fully informed about all aspects of politics, yet their collective behavior and the opinions that hold up the group make sense. They appear to be informed just enough, using preferences like their political ideology and party membership to make decisions and hold politicians accountable during an election year. Overall, the collective public opinion of a country changes over time, even if party membership or ideology does not change dramatically. As James Stimmon's prominent study found, the public's mood or collective opinion can become more or less liberal from decade to decade, while the initial study on public mood revealed that the economy has a profound effect on the American opinion. Presidents may also use their popularity to ask the people to act. In October 2015, following a shooting at Umpqua University College in Oregon, President Obama gave a short speech from the West Wing of the White House, upon which he said, after offering his condolences and prayers to the community, he remarked that prayers and condolences were no longer enough, and he called on citizens to push Congress for a change in gun control laws. President Obama had proposed gun control reform following the 2012 shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary in Connecticut, but it did not pass Congress. This time, the president asked citizens to use gun control as a voting issue and push for reform via the ballot box. So while presidents have at most only 2 terms to serve and work, members of Congress can serve as long as the public returns them to office. We might think that for this reason, public opinion is important to representatives and senators, and that their behavior, such as their votes on domestic programs or funding, will change to match the expectation of the public. But in a more liberal time, the public may expect to see more social programs. In a non-liberal time, the public mood may favor austerity or decreased government spending on programs. Failure to recognize shifts in public opinion may lead to a politicians losing the next election. House of Representatives members with the 2-year term have a more difficult time recovering from decisions that anger local voters. And because most representatives continually fundraise, unpopular decisions can hurt their campaign donations. For these reasons, it seems representatives should be susceptible to polling pressure. Yet one study by James Stimson found that public mood does not directly affect elections, and shifts in public opinion do not predict whether a House member will win or lose. These elections are affected by the president on the ticket, presidential popularity or lack thereof during a midterm election, and the perks of incumbency, such as name recognition and media coverage. In fact, a later study confirmed that the incumbency effect is highly predictive of a win, and public opinion is not. The Senate is quite different from the House in that senators do not enjoy the same benefits of incumbency, and they win re-election at lower rates than the House members, yet they do have one advantage over their colleagues in the House. Senators hold 6-year terms, which gives them the time to engage in fence mending to repair the damage from unpopular decisions. In the Senate, Stimson's study confirmed that opinion affects a senator's chances at re-election, even though it did not affect House members. Specifically, the study shows that when public opinion shifts, fewer senators win re-election. Thus, when public as a whole becomes more or less liberal, new senators are elected. Rather than the senators shifting their policy preferences and voting differently, it is the new senators who change the policy direction of the Senate. Now, once again, there is some disagreement about whether the Supreme Court follows public opinion or shapes it. The lifetime tenure of Justices Enjoy was designed to remove everyday politics from their decisions, protect them from swings in political partisanship, and allow them to choose whether or not to listen to the public opinion. But more often than not, the public is unaware of the Supreme Court's decisions and opinions, and when the justices accept controversial cases, the media tune in and ask questions raising public awareness and affecting opinion. But do the justices pay attention to the polls when they make decisions? Time will tell. So as you guys can see, the effects of public opinion are in fact really dynamic on our institutions of government, and they do in fact show us and tell us why our voices and our votes do matter. So that's something worth bearing in mind as a participating citizen in our democracy. Thank you very much for tuning in, and good luck with completing the rest of the questions and the rest of the lesson.